Welcome to another great conversation on Think Radio Presents Think Business.
Think Business is made possible by funding from the ICE Lab at Western, supporting innovative business in the rural Southwest.
Become a Think Radio Presents partner at patreon.com, and you'll also get access to premium content you won't find anywhere else. Join us today.
My guest today is inventor and entrepreneur Jonathan Ballesteros. Ballesteros is the founder and CEO of Geyser Technologies. The company manufactures an innovative shower system that helps off-the-grid adventurers reduce their water consumption for cleaning themselves and their gear by up to 90%. Ballesteros himself pioneered the patented design, drawing on his extensive experience in industrial engineering, particularly the years he spent managing and designing precision medical equipment. Perhaps what qualifies him most, however, is his own love of outdoor adventure. He has van camped, for example, for extended periods across the Australian outback, and is a licensed master yachtsman, having led sailing adventures around the world. But Geyser is about far more than equipping adventurers. The company has set itself the lofty goal of changing how water is consumed and conserved in some of the world's thirstiest places. Stick around. It's a conversation I know you'll enjoy. Jonathan, thanks for joining me today.
No, thank you for having me, Alan.
You know, we've got so much to talk about because I think your business is so bold and so sweeping it can be. You've got plans to take over the planet. But before we dive straight into that, I want to know who you are and how it is that you came to have such a bold and brilliant idea in the first place. What's your backstory? Where do you come from?
I would share that with two different parts and pieces. Personally, I'm the son of an immigrant family. And so my mother was a refugee from Soviet Union, and my father from Civil War torn Spain. And I think that has a whole lot to do about where I come from, because, you know, when you come to this country and you see freedom in a very different way, I think that has a whole lot of influence as to like where you're going to go and what motivates you and which direction you're going to go next. And I was really fortunate to having been brought up by two hardworking, inspiring parents who also made it a priority for my brother and I to see different parts of the world. So I come from a very international background.
I would say so.
And we are definitely a family of adventurers. So we would always do really cool, fun, exciting things. And then outside of that, you know, everything that they've taught me, not just in terms of education, but even just like in terms of hard work and always striving for being an excellent human being, that led me into a career path that was really unique. So
okay, but wait a minute. We're not going to your career path yet because I'm not done with this story that you just laid out there of these parents that are escaping parts of the world that they wanted to leave behind. Beginning with, were you born in the United States?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So your parents were already here.
Yeah.
But we've got this very romantic notion. Romantic's the wrong idea, wrong word perhaps. It's an adventuresome notion of escaping the Soviet Union. Talk to me just a little bit about your mom's story.
Oh my gosh, I could tell you so much. I actually created a memoir based off of that side of my family. And I, you know, have had lots of friends who, you know, whose grandparents they could never really meet because of the atrocities of World War II. And in my family, like our family is very much intact. And so the story is really interesting. So my great grandfather helped. He was one of the leaders of the Bund, which was pre-communist revolution, and that, from the best of my understanding of history, is what was a key component of what started the communist revolution. And so my great-grandfather, he's really an interesting, inspiring character. Number one, he had a very high position in the Communist Party, and he was an attaché between Germany and Soviet Union. And on top of that, he was a mathematician. He was one of the 7 inventors of the Sputnik, the first satellite to go to outer space, and he helped calculate all the orbits. And so he's one of the reasons that, yeah, I know. And so, but I got a chance to sit down for long periods of time and interview my grandmother and to find out what was it like, you know, and that was primarily motivated from observing a movie or a documentary of what's happening in North Korea right now. And when I saw that documentary, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, this is something quite similar to what my grandparents came from. And so I went to my grandmother and I was like, hey, babushka, grandmother in Russian. And I was like, what was this? Was this what it was like? I mean, and so from that, I was really fascinated. And I wanted to get into the mentality of what's it like to be in a society that is, that requires you to totally let go of your individuality. And what were the challenges that she faced? And the long story short, they had very clear tabs on, you know, if you want to get out of Soviet Union, you'd have to turn in your passport to the KGB. And then they would give you permission to leave. And so my grandparents thought, okay, well, the chances are now good to do that because there's only an 80% chance of getting sent to Siberia. Normally 90% of those who applied would get sent to Siberia. And so they decided, okay, well, now we're keeping tabs on everyone that are trying to escape. And they managed to get on a plane, got to Vienna, and discovered this thing called being a refugee. They had no idea what that actually was until they left the Iron Curtains. So, yeah.
Right. Well, so refugees went in a lot of different directions. How did they wind up in the United States?
Yeah, so when they were in Italy, they had a lot of different options. And I think the decision was really clear. We just want to be away from Russians in a very warm climate. And Dallas, Texas had a very warm receiving community and put in a lot of extra effort to help those who were escaping Soviet Union. And so the community in Dallas was where they decided to make themselves at home. So,
yeah, and that's where you call home, or did.
Yeah. So born in Houston, but yeah, Texas is near and dear to my heart. I will say, though, I've had the opportunity to live abroad in a variety of different countries. And so I definitely find a piece of home wherever I go. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, now I'm going to let you pick up that thread. Tell me about how all of that shaped the career path that you took.
Well, I was really, being near to NASA, I was one of those kids who was just like, I want to be an astronaut.
Well, we all did.
Yeah, I know. It was so awesome. It was so cool and fun. And so, and yeah, I mean, I had an opportunity to interview, and I was in aerospace engineering at Texas A&M and flight school and everything. And it was one of my very first early failures, which was not a bad thing. It was actually a good thing. I got rejected from that interview. And that was a really crazy moment in my life because I was so focused and passionate about one day, you know, getting a chance to, you know, be part of the astronaut team. And so the long story short is, at that point in time, I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do next? And yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah.
What reason did they give you for rejecting you?
I don't know. I guess I was just really nervous of the interview. I don't really know.
It wasn't because you had a KGB official in your background.
Oh, no. That's definitely not it. Yeah, that's actually... there's an interesting history that when that side of my family came to the United States, they, let's just say they put in extra effort to become American citizens. So so we're clearly on the red, white, and blue side.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So, but no, we're very much patriotic. Anyway, so yeah, once I decided I wanted to complete my minor in aerospace out of mere, like, I just wanted the challenge. Aerospace engineering is one of the most difficult aspects of engineering, and it's really fascinating. So I wanted to complete that, and during that completion, I just pursued my passions, and my heart led me to two things: mathematics and factories, and that's where
I've never had anyone say to me, Alan, my heart led me to factories.
I know.
What the heck?
Factories are cool. I mean, like, if you think about the miracle of life, you look at it and you study it, and it's essentially the reversal of entropy, right? It's like the nature has come together in one of the most magnificent ways. And I know a lot of people think, oh, factory, negative connotation, dirty, polluting, etc. But from my perspective, there's no place, no corner of the world where human beings are reversing more entropy, more chaos than in a factory. And we're not just talking about the chaos of, parts and pieces coming together. I mean, even the person in a team who comes in the morning after, hard night's sleep, or they had an argument with a family or whatever, they actually have to really, organize themselves to work together as a team. And I see factories as a very exciting team sport where miracles are being organized in a way so that everyone can enjoy it. So like, we commonly take for granted the engine, for example, but that's a miracle. And how cool is it that everyone gets to have that miracle? And that's only a byproduct of, what's happening under the roof of a factory. So yeah.
That is such a cool perspective that I've never really thought about, connecting, overcoming entropy with making stuff. But what a beautiful picture that is, because really it's organizing all of those parts, all of those resources into something that didn't exist before. Not just the object, but as you're saying, the community that comes together around it.
Yeah, and I mean, like this glass of water, we immediately identify, oh, glass, but in my mind, I see a conversation, because what it takes for a team of people to create this, there was an argument about the thread. There was an argument about where the parting line was going to be. Oh, we definitely need the logo. And I see a conversation when I look at something. And I think one of the most important parts of a company that gets commonly overlooked are the people who are delivering on that conversation. Because without a factory, it's all just an idea and a bunch of words. And that's important. That's the most important starting point of a factory. But I have a real passion and fascination and love for the people who deliver on that conversation. And they are the people that I just have a lot of respect and love for. Yeah.
Yeah. So give me an example of a story of somebody that you would just say, that's what I'm talking about right there. And I'm assuming you mean the engineers, you mean the managers, but you're also talking about the guy that he's got this one station on the line.
Oh, yeah. Countless examples. I've worked in stainless steel mills in Spain, stainless steel valve plants in Taiwan. I helped grow a factory in Costa Rica. But I would definitely think back to one of the most unique and greatest honors I've ever had. So straight out of college, I had a one-of-a-kind opportunity to be an operations manager for Dell Computers' flagship desktop factory. It was the Topper manufacturing plant. And
where was it?
It was in Austin, Texas. And just to give you an idea how special this plant was, it was the factory of the year for the United States in 2001. And if you walk in, it's just got a mind of its own. There's computers everywhere, flying all over the place in these complex conveyor belts in multiple different levels. And 23,000 computers a day. And I was responsible for 55 of the people who were managing these lines in what we would call the bottleneck of the factory. So on top of the fact that I was in this factory, I also got a chance to be in the lines of the factory that really did determine what we're going to orchestrate for the next hour, next 3 hours, next 8 hours, the next day. And it was really, really remarkable. And I think it gave me an opportunity to fine-tune my leadership, which for me is about getting on the line and really knowing what your people are about and what they're facing. Mm-hmm. And I would always come up to them in the mornings, and I would always thank them for giving me the opportunity to do what I love. And I will never forget, there was this one young guy who he was coming from the evening shift, the night shift. And the night shift and day shift have very two different cultures. And the night shift, they have a different way of doing things. And so this one guy in our team, I'll never forget him. He comes up to me and he's like, listen, just give me a chance, okay? I know we're facing this big mountain of accumulated product before our lines, and if you give me the opportunity to do something that we normally do in the night shift, I'll be able to run 2 lines with half the crew. And
that had your attention.
And that had my attention, and it was a big, bold move because, if he failed, that would have shut the shift down early. And so I took a risk, and I got on the line with him and followed his lead. And he created what was a skeleton crew on one of our high velocity lines that normally would require 8, and we achieved it with 3 people and got a rate that was really impressive. And we were able to catch up to a normal flow rate in the factory and maintain flow for the rest of the shift, as well as recover our position to ensure that the factory was flowing. And he was a shining star. I quickly really supported all his creative efforts, and I just sometimes he made some mistakes, but you know what? That's what it takes to run a factory.
Well, they are humans after all, working in a factory.
Yeah, and when you work next to them, you quickly realize it's not just simple work. It takes it takes a lot of physical work and mental discipline. It's like a marathon being run every day. And anyway, I just really appreciated what they did.
So I think if you could pull a principle out of that story, might it be, don't be afraid to listen?
Yes.
To the people that are actually doing the work that you're supervising if you're in that position?
Yeah, because every time you make a decision as a manager, you have to get real about how the consequences of that decision will roll out to the people who are really making value for your company. And from my perspective, you will not really know how to make effective decisions unless you get on the line, roll up your sleeves, and work with those people. And so I commit an extra amount of time to know what it's like to put a screw in a hard spot, or to, even unwrap enclosures time and time again. And, sometimes when you get on the line and you listen, you'll quickly find out that these people, they know the art of your product inside and out. In Costa Rica, when I was managing a team of engineers and manufacturing engineers at our medical device plant, at the time when I came in at ArthurCare, there was a lot of contention between the R&D team in Silicon Valley and the manufacturing team in Costa Rica that was supposed to roll it out. And so one of my responsibilities was to bridge the two cultures and successfully launch products. And not only did the team in Costa Rica effectively did that, but I enrolled people in our company in a possibility that great leaders leave greater leaders behind. And what that looked like was the manufacturing engineers contributing to R&D efforts in that company because they were so close to the product day in and day out. and Nazer Munoz, Miguel Alfaro. I mean, these are just examples of like really amazing people. If you go into your factory, you're going to discover a wealth of talent that can really contribute to your company's bottom line.
Well, you've just summed up one of my sort of core philosophies in doing these shows, right? I love sitting down and talking with people. When I sit down with you, I'm not talking to an entrepreneur. That's a category, right? That's a label. I love hearing about your grandmother, and I love hearing about your time in Costa Rica. We could do a series of 12 shows, you and I. We could talk about sailing. We could talk about the year you spent overlanding in Australia. Okay, there are lots of things. But all of that and all of the things that you've expressed so far are just about respect for people. That you look at a factory, it's not bricks and glass and steel. It's the people inside. You look at a society, it's the people that are making it work.
Yeah.
And as I say, we could go on and on about that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to run out of time and miss the opportunity to talk about what you're doing now. Because I find it very exciting, partly because at the end of the day, it's a story about people and how their lives are improved. So talk to me about Geyser Systems.
Yeah. So Geyser Systems is a company that manufactures products and design products around this new conversation that we're creating, that every drop of water counts. And these products will allow you to do new things with water. The immediate flagship product called the Geyser System is a hot portable shower that uses less than a gallon of water. And that's 10 times less water than you would normally use. Very relevant in a camping setting, or for those of you who love to do mountain biking or go to electronic music festivals or just enjoy to do anything outdoors. This is a product that's really going to disrupt what's available and what's possible for people who want to get a little dirty and get clean at the end of the day. So,
which if you've ever spent any extended period of time out on the trail, that's a big challenge.
Yeah. And we take water for granted because it's readily available. But when you look at a base camp, we paid attention to what's needed in invading a base camp, and we quickly picked up like, wow, the number one thing to run out after beer is water. And so canned food or dried food will always last longer, and so will fuel. But water is really the first thing to run out. And so what we've done is create a way for you to wash yourself, your gear, your four-legged friends, and your campmates, using less than a gallon of water, which is really cool and exciting.
So describe how you've done that. I mean, because I can hear some people saying, yeah, I've done that. I take the gallon, I pour it in a pail, and I wash off. What's different?
Yeah, so our patented technology has two unique components that make up the complete secret sauce. Number one, we have a pumping algorithm that operates very similar to your heart rate. So the more water you need, the faster the pump will operate in the geyser. And then the second component is what we call a low flow device. It's where the water is getting distributed from the pump and getting dispersed. Instead of having a shower head that will spray water everywhere, we have a thing that you would hold in your hand. Our immediate one is called a scrub. It's like a sponge. And the water is getting dispersed out of the sponge. So instead of having water spraying over you from a shower head, you'll have a scrub where the water is getting dispersed exactly where you need it. And so we have these two components working together to make the most of every drop of water. And the product is awesome. It's simple, it's super safe and easy enough for a kid to use. All you gotta do is just pour in a gallon of water, plug it into a 12-volt source, turn on the heating element or the pump, and off you go. Yeah.
Well, as I say, anyone who's ever spent any time outdoors or, extended periods of time off the grid is right now thinking, wow, okay, I want to try that out. Mm. But honestly, I'm more interested in the long-term vision that you have articulated, which is, we're not just talking about recreation.
Yeah.
What else are you setting your sights on here with this product? What other problems do you see this in a position to solve?
Yeah. Immediately we see, camping. But beyond that, we also see seniors. Leading cause of death and injury for them is falling. And that, of course, in the most slippery place is in their bathroom. We're going to put a big red X over the entire shower stall. And we're finding ways to use our technology so that seniors can clean themselves without a caregiver overlooking them and do it conveniently right next to their bed or in a place that doesn't require them to fall slip.
Which is not just about hygiene, that's about dignity also.
It is. Firefighters, second leading cause of death is cancer. There's a white paper study that was produced out of Canada in which thousands of firefighters were asked to pee in a cup an hour after they fought a fire. And what they discovered was something interesting. They have 5 times more carcinogens in their urine. And that perfectly correlates to the 5 times more firefighters getting cancer of all kinds relative to the general public. There's a real need to remove the carcinogenic soot that falls on their skin, gets transferred dermally, and now runs systemically within the hour of their firefight. And then when we think about wildland firefighters like Carr, they're camping in the middle of nowhere, and we need to keep them refreshed. We need to keep them ready, and we need to just give them the opportunity to clean off after a hard day of firefighting as well. And so this will help them. And then 2 other places, we really don't think water is inaccessible, especially in this day and age. But when we look at the corners of our streets in Los Angeles, the homeless that are living under the bridge, they don't have water readily accessible to them. So we can definitely help them out and use our technology, put it, let's say, in a trailer system that will provide showers for the homeless and allow them to feel refreshed and restart their life. Because that's what actually is happening every day when we wake up and have a shower, is we get a new restart. And then globally, there's 2.3 billion people in the world who are living in highly water-stressed situations. And that's being defined not just by the water supply, but also by the water demand. And each one of our scrubs over the life of the scrub will save 1,500 gallons of water. Should we implement our technology on an existing water well in Ethiopia and give that to rural Ethiopia to use this technology to conserve the water, now all that water can be used to create food, create a food table, and start feeding people who, on top of water depravity, they're also in dire need for some food. So we see this technology really changing the game for a variety of different situations. And for that, we have, our team has a clear idea of what we're up to. And so today, our products are going to redefine adventure, but tomorrow we will redefine what it means to live on planet Earth.
Well, that's just a small little vision, really, when you think about it. Nothing too ambitious there. Tie that back for me. How a person can get to the place where you think it's even possible for you and your team to take on something that huge. Let's go back to where we started, to your origin story. What did you learn growing up the way you did, and with the philosophy that you heard at home, that has led you to believe that this is not only possible, but you're going to do it?
It takes a lot of guts. And it takes a lot of bravery. But I've been in positions of leadership in which I've seen transformative results unfold when you bring great people together and help them, number one, feel safe and that they belong, that they can safely make a failure and that they can experiment and innovate their way through their immediate challenge.
Safely make a failure. That's a phrase that sticks out to me. What do you mean by that?
I think failure is great. The sooner you fail, the sooner you're going to get this golden nugget and have a breakthrough. Because, you're seeing what is new and unfolding. Let me not make any mistake. It took me 6 months of my life and 6 rounds of prototyping, long hours in a cold shed at 4 a.m. in the morning, repeatedly trying to achieve a specific result with water before I finally, I would almost say, discovered and bumped into this phenomenon. And it took a lot of failure to get here, but I think it's fun. I think it's playing. And, we need to let go as a society of this idea that our kids cannot go out and try something and break something and try to rebuild it again. I think the day and age of tinkering and trying things out is really important, not just for the development of skill, but even just the development of character, I'll never forget where this all began. I have an affinity for cooking. I love bringing people together for a variety of different situations, and that especially as a home-cooked meal at home with a lot of good friends. And my passion for cooking began when I was 5 years old. My dad cooks morning Sunday breakfast, and I saw him playing with fire, and I thought, oh, cool, I want to play with all these adult toys. And so, Dad, I want to do what you did. And so he pulls up a chair right up in front of the stove, and he brings out a dozen of eggs. And he's like, take this egg, tap it against the pan, open it up. And the egg yolk didn't come out perfectly. And he's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Just do it again. And of course, we went through 8 eggs before we finally got it.
Yeah.
But that moment that he passed down to me was so important, because at first when you see imperfection, you're like, oh my gosh, that's not what I wanted. That's not how it turned out. That's okay. Just keep going. You'll get there. Just keep going. You'll get there. And that's where a lot of my persistence to overcoming failure and actually in celebrating a new failure, that's where it comes from. Yeah.
And now you can probably cook some mean eggs, right?
Over easy, whichever way you want to. Yeah.
Well, and one thing I find interesting is we're discovering as we go out and find these stories, and I say we, everyone who's looking, that is true no matter what innovation you're talking about. If you dig very deep, something that looks like it just appeared on the planet and came out of nowhere, if you dig very deep, you find that somebody was sitting there on a cold morning at 4 a.m. breaking eggs, right? Yeah. It's like it can't be done any other way. And so I appreciate your story for that reason alone. But this isn't just a speculative idea. You're already making these, right?
Yes.
And you've got some exciting, retail outlets coming online for you and so forth. So where would you say you are in the process of this big vision?
Yeah. Well, I'll just leave off where I was just last talking about the 6 prototypes, each prototype giving me a round of feedback from customers on the critical features that they were looking for. We pressure tested the design in the Australian outback. I wanted to know where the weakest points were in this design. And then we took that to a talented team that I've been working with in the medical device industry. And we refined it into something that we think people are going to love, as well as endure a lot of the difficult situations and expeditions that people will put it through. For example, our product is going to be on an upcoming TV show, The Lost Frontier, which is really exciting. We helped a team of 4 go through the Arctic Circle for 45 days with very limited water because of our system. And so, right now we're at a position where we've had a design, it's been proven, it's been tested, It's been pressure tested some more, and we're feeling confident about putting this on the shelves in the near future. So we're going to be shipping this from a manufacturing center that we've created, and our first shipment's coming out in August. So yeah.
Yeah.
Super awesome.
Manufacturing center, you're talking about a factory.
Yes. Yep. Yeah,
there you are again, playing with factories.
Yeah.
Well, what a great story. And as I say, I would love to have you back sometime to talk about some of the other fascinating aspects to that story. But Jonathan, thanks for joining me. I've enjoyed the conversation a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Alan. Thank you.
Think Radio Presents is a production of Alan Morris Media. The show's producer is Isa Forrest. Associate producer, Aaron Lewis.
Thanks for listening. Become a Think Radio Presents partner at patreon.com, and you'll also get access to premium content you won't find anywhere else. To leave a comment on today's show or to suggest a great story for a future episode, visit thinkradiopresents.com. Tune in next week for another great conversation on Think Radio Presents Think Business.